So, does anyone care to touch on this further?
Remember when Donald Trump had a military parade last summer, that there was an alternate one that the left staged that was kind of foul? There was the No Kings protest. There was those congressional.
Now, I don't know if you remember that little parade that Trump threw for himself with the squeaky tank and all that. My name is Jerry. I left MAGA, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about this cat right here, Victor Davis Hanson. Now, my dad happens to love him as a historian, and I'm gonna, yeah, we're gonna talk about this dude. But I wanna give you his alleged credentials. Victor Davis Hanson, born September 5th, 1953, is an American classicist, military historian, and conservative political commentator. He has been a commentator on modern and ancient warfare and contemporary politics for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the National Review, and the Wall Street Times or Washington Times, and other media outlets. If you happen to have caught episode 4 of 24 of the Project 2025 training videos, the New York Times and the Washington Times were both named as unreliable sources. Anyway, continuing, he is a professor emeritus of classics at California State University in Fresno, the Martin and Illy Anderson Senior Fellow in Classics and Military History at the Hoover Institution, and visiting professor at Hillsdale College. I mentioned them before as being they participated in the Project 2025 training videos actually. Um, Hanson was awarded the National Humanities Medal in 2007 by George W. Bush, and was presidential nominee, or I'm sorry, and was a presidential appointee in 2007, 2008 on the American Battle Monuments Commission. So that gives you a thumbnail of this guy that we're getting ready to listen to. And just in case, I'm going to show you guys how I do this. Just in case he says something wacky, I have a browser tab pulled up to check out whatever it is he's saying because I can't trust anything. I don't suggest you trust anything that this guy says. Anyway, so let's get on to this Victor Davis Hanson and how Democrat nihilism, he pronounces it nihilism. I found out both pronunciations are correct. We'll look at the definition here in a moment. But why Democrat nihilism is at an all-time high right now. Victor Davis Hanson. All right, let's go ahead and look at the definition here. Nihilism, a viewpoint that traditional values and beliefs are unfounded and that existence is senseless and useless. I happen to know a lot of Democrats that think that existence makes perfect sense and is incredibly useful as far as what MAGA accepts as traditional values and beliefs. Some of those are pretty unfounded. Definition of nihilism 1B, a doctrine that denies any objective ground of truth and especially of moral truths. Interesting. So as you can see, it seems like these people all they can do is project. Definition 2, a doctrine that no reality exists. I could play that into the theme of the conspiracy theory community that all history is a lie. Nobody's telling you the truth. None of that existed. Also, nihilism, definition 3A, a doctrine or belief that conditions in the social organization are so bad as to make destruction desirable for its own sake, independent of any constructive program or possibility. which is probably why my dad was so enthusiastic about the idea of nuclear war to wipe out everybody. Definition 3B, nihilism, the program of a 19th century Russian party advocating revolutionary reform and using terrorism and assassination. That sounds vaguely familiar. So let's go back to Mr. Hanson and see what it is he has to say.
I'd like to talk a bit about democratic nihilism. A lot of it has to do with Trump derangement syndrome. There's something about Donald Trump, I don't know what it is entirely. His Queen's accent, his appearance, his utter disdain for the media, the academic world, the deep state, corporate boardroom, I don't know what it is. But he
Maybe all the above.
drives the left into kind of a state of madness. And you can see it with some of their leaders. They've descended into utter nihilism. There's no consistency. By that I mean the Democratic Party, such as it is in the last 10 years, at least from the advent of Barack Obama, bears no resemblance to what we saw as lately as the 90s, the 92 and 96 Democratic platforms. They seem like Republican platforms.
I believe that together we can make America great again.
So what has happened?
That Make America Great Again thing actually goes back to Reagan and really goes much further back than that. I'll have to make a video about that. And then I also need to make a video about the similarities and policies that were implemented during the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton's administration, and by comparison to Trump's first administration. So, as we can see here, it would seem pretty obvious to me anyway that Victor Davis Hanson um, is not grounded in reality. Also, if you watched episode 4 of 24 of the Project 2025 training videos series that I'm working on, the Daily Signal is considered one of those positive resources for these people. So this is considered acceptable truth for MAGA.
Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. I'd like to talk for a bit about democratic nihilism. By that I mean the Democratic Party, such as it is in the last 10 years, at least from the advent of Barack Obama, bears no resemblance to what we saw as lately as the 90s with the 92 and 96 Democratic platforms. They're almost they seem like Republican platforms. So what has happened? And I think the answer is they've descended into utter nihilism. Take Iran. Last year, when Donald Trump had not yet bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran, but had threatened to and then had extended negotiations, the Democrats came up with the word taco. Trump always chickens out. And they presented the image of a fickle president that was too afraid to take on Iran, which they said had to be taken on.
Excuse me, Victor, but that wasn't the only case. See, you're doing like the rest of your community does. You're cherry picking an example. What about Trump tacoing out on Greenland or Panama or anyway?
And then suddenly he did this, and now they're calling him a warmonger that's going to cause World War III and destroy the economy.
Okay, hang on. This is from March 25th, 2026. Today is March 31st, 2026. So this program is just 6 days old. If he can't recognize what's going on because of the tariff chaos, which is wrecking our supply chain in the United States. I mean, I'm guessing this guy's got enough money that he doesn't notice that the price of gas is going up, that he doesn't notice that the cost of groceries are going up because it doesn't affect his budget like it does the average Joe out here just trying to make it.
They have this idea that genocide is being committed by the Israelis at a time of war, but they've said
It's oh, good. Okay, so he's a genocide denial in reference to Gaza, or denier in reference to Gaza.
Nothing about the Iranian government that slaughtered over 30,000 of their own people. So there's
No mention of Alex Preddy or Renee Good or any of the other civilians that have died on American streets. Or how about the American soldiers that have died or have been injured because of this action to try to distract from the Epstein files? I should look up and see what Victor's got to say about Jeffrey.
no consistency. A lot of it has to do with Trump derangement syndrome. There's something about Donald Trump. I don't know what it is entirely. His Queen's accent, his appearance, his utter disdain for the media, the academic world, the deep state, the corporate boardroom. I don't know what it is, but he drives the left into kind of a state of madness.
Okay, hang on. We got to check something here real quick. Got my keyboard here. Let's see, Trump fans. At rally. No, I'm just gonna go with Trump fans, and we're gonna look at images. That's how I do this crazy stuff. Let's see. Yeah, and let's tell us that we've got Trump derangement syndrome, and look at all that Trump gear. Even got that kid wearing a Trump shirt, Trump hat, Trump glasses. I'm sure you guys have seen the pictures out there. Trump statues. Wait, that guy's out there with a rifle? Huh. Yeah. And they want to accuse the average human being, the rational individual who doesn't want to bow down and lick his boots or shoes or kiss his cankles or any other part of his anatomy as far as that goes, um, for some doctrinal reason. Anyway, back to Victor and his Trump derangement syndrome.
And you can see it with some of their leaders. Take Gavin Newsom, for example. Gavin said he wanted to punch Trump in the mouth. He went over
All right, that's the least of it.
to Europe and said that the Europeans had knee pads as if they were performing some, I guess he meant foul sex act on Donald Trump. He's completely flipped out. He told a black audience that his test scores were low and therefore no different than theirs.
I seriously doubt that ever happened.
The subtext of that was that you typically, as a group, have low test scores, and I am a white person who has lower than average. So I don't compare myself to people at large, but only to you.
Oh, oh, oh. Okay, so I'm just I don't have the facts on it, but knowing how these people uh twist information, I'm guessing that it's more likely Gavin Newsom said he didn't pass all of his tests, and that doesn't make him any better or any worse than anybody else. Trying to show that there can be views of equality between human beings because we're human beings.
It's a foolish thing to say. From time to time, Cory Booker, Spartacus, resurfaced just to scream and yell. The latest manifestation of him is at the airports, where he's yelling and screaming about ICE. And you look at all the people's faces, and as they pass the ICE officers who are filling in for the unpaid TSA employees, they're happy. They're delighted.
No, that's not the view that I have.
And Booker doesn't seem to understand that if you take the crazy left-wing protest out of the picture, ICE wouldn't have to have masks on. They don't have masks at airports because nobody is going around taking pictures of them and trying to dox them so that they could be killed or shot by their enemies, especially the cartels.
Oh my goodness. There are so many pictures out there of the icebergs, morbidly obese ice agents that are hanging out in these airports. And they're not hanging out in all of them. Okay, I got a report back from a friend who went to Arizona from St. Louis and they had no problem getting there. So it's not all airports, right? Um, this is just crazy what he's doing. If ICE wasn't kidnapping people and trafficking them to a country that they've never been to, maybe people wouldn't be protesting. You know, there was what, over 8 million people protested in No Kings 3 and a handful of arrests. And from what I understand, Stuart Rhodes and Enrico Tario were both, was it Nashville or Dallas? Anyway, they were both at one of the No Kings protests and whipping up agitation. And moving on.
People think they're doing a great thing. And so they're completely unhinged. And think of what we see. It's just since Donald Trump came back, there has been nothing but the Tesla demonstrations. Remember that?
Well, maybe if Elon Musk hadn't been trying to figure out how to cut 200,000 jobs from the American labor market, maybe if the Trump administration wasn't trying to cut 32,000 jobs from the VA, maybe people wouldn't be up in arms. Maybe people wouldn't be protesting Tesla. Maybe people wouldn't be going out and boycotting businesses because the business owners are contributing to the madness of this administration that this guy is trying. I'm sorry, that this guy is trying to allege is somehow normal. This is not behavior that we can allow to be normalized. Just plain and simple, we cannot allow it to be normalized. We cannot allow this sort of thinking to be normalized. This is the kind of thing. This is the reason why I had to go into contact with my dad.
Remember when Donald Trump had a military parade last summer, that there was an alternate one that the left staged that was kind of foul? There was the No Kings protest. There was those congressional.
Now, I don't know if you remember that little parade that Trump threw for himself with the squeaky tank and all that. Um, there was a counter event that was presented in opposition to give people something different to look at, something different to participate in, something that they felt like was for them, not this apricot antichrist.
Videos where female members of Congress were kickboxing. There were the ones that said, we're going to UNFU word, foul mouth. We had the other congressional and senator making a video where they essentially advocated.
Wait. What about the whole FJB thing? Huh? You want to talk about your side? How about that guy that was supposedly going to be nominated and had to pull his nomination before Matt Gaetz for AG, who was wanting to see Democrat bodies dragged through the streets, and he's trying to paint himself as some kind of saint.
For military officers to disobey orders.
What? Disobey unlawful orders, you nincompoop.
This is the aftermath of the Trump collusion. Even as I'm speaking today, new developments have come out that the Democrats under Barack Obama and later Joe Biden, they spied on U.S. senators, they spied on representatives.
And Palantir is not spying on all Americans. that Project Lifelog, that DARPA project for the intelligence community, uh, didn't shut down the day that Facebook opened up. You're trying to convince me that the American government has not been spying on the American people since the days of J. Edgar Hoover.
Representatives, they spied on current FBI Director Kash Patel, all in an effort to create a hoax that Donald Trump had colluded with the Russians.
He colluded with the Russians. That's that's precisely why Donald Trump had to give Mike Flynn, the disgraced general, a freaking pardon because Mike Flynn lied to the FBI about his interaction that he had not reported to any federal accountability agency. Mike Flynn's interaction with Russian assets.
And then after that was exposed as a fraud, they went right into impeachment, and then they went right into Russian disinformation in 2020, which was exposed.
Okay, hang on. I've got to do this. I just have to. Um, oh, wait a minute. I did not mean to do that. Hang on. Let me open a new tab. Um, Roy Weed. Let me introduce you to Mr. Roy Weed. Oh no, it's Doug Reed was the I want Doug Weed, not Roy Weed. Sorry, Roy Weed's the dad. Doug Weed. Roy Weed, I'll cover him at another point. Doug Weed. Um, it was in his death announcement. There it is. So, conservative Florida pundit awaiting trial for allegedly funneling money to Trump campaign dies. Now, what's really wild is if there was no uh, Russia collusion, then why was it that Donald Trump ended up pardoning Doug Weed? Doug, Doug Weed um, during the first administration. Weed, a former special assistant to President George H.W. Bush, who served as an advisor to multiple presidential campaigns, and co-defendant to Jesse R. Benton of Louisville, Kentucky, pleaded not guilty in September. Weed was released on his own recognizance, Benton on a $25,000 bond. So here's Benton. Benton, 43, ran the pro-Trump Great, pro-Trump Great America Super PAC and got a December 2020 pardon from Trump for his 2016 conviction on conspiracy and other charges arising from a 2012 campaign scheme to buy a political endorsement in 2012 or in the 2012 Iowa caucuses for ex-Congressman Ron Paul. Denton worked on two of Paul's presidential campaigns and also on the Senate campaign for Rand Paul or campaigns for Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. And so yeah, that's Doug Weed, but no Russia collusion, none whatsoever.
As a fraud, and then they went right into a second impeachment, and then they went into the first trial in U.S. history of a president when he was out of office, and then they did the
Because no other former U.S. president has been nearly as corrupt as Donald Trump. Yeah. Oh yeah, ninny.
the raid on Mar-a-Lago. First time we've had a president's home residence for doing.
Maybe if he hadn't confiscated or absconded with classified information.
Doing what? Doing what Joe Biden did for 30 years, bringing a few classified files out and under his own ownership or temporary ownership, but much more secure at Mar-a-Lago than it was in Joe Biden's garage.
Okay, so prosecute Joe Biden if that happened. Prosecute him, right? Just keep a level field. But how is Joe Biden's garage any less secure than a bathroom at Mar-a-Lago?
So we had the 5 trials. We had the crazy Petita James real estate trial. We had the
Letitia James.
crazy Alvin Bragg bootstrapping a campaign violation that's a federal matter onto a state. We had Fannie Willis.
Because states are in charge of elections, not the federal government. Dude, go read a civics book.
A campaign violation that's a federal matter onto a state. We had Fannie Willis' circus in Georgia.
Yeah, I was along for that ride. And the evidence didn't pan out, and I lost faith.
We had Jack Smith, who's always in the news for some unethical act that he committed while he had this vendetta against Donald Trump.
Maybe on your side of things.
We had the E. Jean Carroll trial, which was a fiasco.
No, it rendered 34 felony counts in accordance with a jury of peers. As I recall, the judge was not happy about the decision, but it played out the way it played out.
We had efforts to take him off 20. What I'm getting at is there's no consistent message. There's no one in the Democratic Party saying, okay, here is our blueprint for a foreign policy, and it differs from the Republicans, and it's more suited to the American interests. Okay, we're going to have a new immigration policy, and we're going to do the following, A, B, C, D. Okay, we have crime has risen under Donald Trump. It's gone to historic lows, but it's not because he's stopped illegal immigration. We have a different theory, and here's what it is. Here's our new Green New Deal 2.0, 3.0. Here it is. They don't even offer a left-wing agenda. It's just nihilism, nihilism, nihilism.
No left wing agenda. How about healthcare for all? How about universal basic income? How about housing the unhoused? How about feeding the hungry? How about getting the lead out of the drinking water, especially in schools? How about an equal playing field for all schools instead of basing their finances on the tax base of their community? What do you mean no clear agenda? We just want to make the world better. And I'm not even a Democrat. I'm an unspecified voter with liberal leanings because I'm a humanist.
There's no coherence. So what happened to them?
Okay, no coherence. Look back through my videos that I've done so far in this why I left MAGA playlist and find the common thread for me. I suggest you go start with Lance Wallnau and his chaos stuff or the chaos magic video that I did.
What happened to the party of JFK and Harry Truman?
JFK wanted community care for all. He wanted affordable health care for all. If you've got the money to pay for the doctor, you're paying for the doctor. If you don't have money for the doctor, you don't pay for a doctor. You get the doctor anyway. That was JFK's plan. I'm thankful that I have access to that through the VA. Everybody should have it. You shouldn't have to offer to sacrifice your life for the country and then be lucky enough to survive to be able to draw those benefits. Those should be benefits for everybody.
Well, we saw what Jimmy Carter did to it. But Bill Clinton tried to restore and go back to the middle. But I think there's been 3 or 4 cosmic changes that have accelerated the destruction of the Democratic Party into a.
No, it's not no, it's what you guys are doing, what's happening is accelerating the destruction of the Republican Party. The infighting on your side is so bad that MAGA has basically fallen apart down to its most rotten core. And I know that there will be some people that will be offended by what I just said. Frankly, I just have to say Ben Shapiro got it right. Facts don't care about your feelings. Anyway, good grief, this guy's getting me fired up. See, I can't do too many of his videos, but I'm gonna have to do more work on him, just like I have to on Ken Copeland. And trust me, I've got a mountain of work on Billy Graham because I got an axe to grind with that guy.
Nihilist entity. The first is we've opened under a lot of administration. The border is wide open. We have the highest number of foreign residents ever in the United States, 53 million, 16% of.
I am not. You know what? Let's fact check that. Number of immigrants in the United States. We'll just have to check that because I can't trust anything this guy says, and I'm not sure that I can trust this browser 100%. Let's see, what is AI going to give me? Okay, well, Pew Research says 53 million, 53.3. Migration policy. I am not seeing quick numbers to answer my question. So AI is also reporting 53.3 million, but it may be drawing from Pew Research, which is a right-leaning think tank. USA Facts. What do I know about them? I don't know off the top of my head. This is according as of 2024. The U.S. is home to almost 335 million people, some 46.2 million of whom, 13.8%, were born outside of the country. So there's that. That's that. I'm gonna go with those numbers because that sounds about right, and I like how they worded it. It's factual. All right, back to Victor.
Of the population, and it comes at a time when our balloting laws are never been so suspect that people, whether it's mail-in or early balloting or voter.
Donald Trump just voted by mail-in ballot, dude.
ID, the Democrats they have one consistent position: get as many people to vote with as few reviews of their eligibility as possible.
Wrong answer. Maybe it was just because I was in a Republican county. But the last time I cast the ballot, all I had to do was show either my voter registration ID card, no picture on it, or my photo ID card. And I needed to show my photo ID card to get my voter registration. In fact, I do believe Missouri has the option for the motor voter deal. When you get your driver's license, you can automatically become a voter. But if you don't have citizenship, you can't vote, so they won't register you as a voter. You have to be an American citizen getting a driver's license before you can have the option to be added to the voter rolls. I'm pretty sure Missouri is not alone in that practice.
And that is a new big constituency, and that constituency came from places that were poor, autocratic, and need massive inputs of federal subsidies and state subsidies. And that's a viable constituency. We see it with questions of Israel. The new DEI constituency does not like Israel. It's radically change the Democratic Party. We
No, it hasn't radically changed the Democratic Party. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is our strength. Equity sets the playing field level for everybody, and inclusion doesn't exclude people. This is the idea of a unified harmony. And you can throw that all the way back to the hippies in the 60s. But that's where the modern Democrats have come from.
constituency does not like Israel. It's
Yeah, no, we don't like Israel. They just like did a genocide in Gaza. They've dragged the United States into this insanity with Iran and all over burying the Epstein files.
radically changed the Democratic Party. We
Which by the way, we in the Democratic that are leaning liberal, those of us who believe in the democracy, want the files turned into trials.
see it with visiting students. We see it with green card holders.
And maybe if you travel to other parts of the world and got yourself a direct context for the culture, or oh, I don't know, maybe if you don't have the time or the money to travel, you could check out a YouTube video. Imagine that. People that go out and travel the world and make YouTube videos so they can show you the cool stuff or where the economic disparity is to try to bring in some help where there's a food desert.
The second phenomenon was globalization. Globalization, from basically the millennia until now, rewarded people with a 7 billion person market if you had skills that could cross borders, if you were in the media, if you could open a university in Dubai, if you had an insurance company that you wanted to have offices in Latin America, if you were a lawyer, global legal terms, anything that dealt with information, finance, media, insurance.
Real estate. How many countries does Trump have towers in?
You got this.
You know what? Let's look that up. Let's look that up. Um, Trump towers around the world. So we'll go search Trump towers around the world. Um, let's go with Wikipedia. Let's see. There's Trump Tower, Manila, Philippines. There's uh, there's one in Uruguay, Florida, Turkey, India, Chicago, Illinois, New York City, India. Buildings known as Trump Tower. There's 40 Wall Street, Trump International Hotel, in Las Vegas, Trump Park in New York City, Stanford. Let's see. Unfulfilled proposals. Okay, he's got what? Florida, Berlin, Stuttgart, Frankfurt. One of those three. Moscow. Oh, I thought there wasn't any Russian ties. Planned but never built. All right, cool. But no collusion. Trump Towers, Atlanta, Georgia, Rio, Brazil. Hey, you get what I'm saying here, right? You see what I'm saying? All right. I will include these links. Let's go back to Victor. Let's see if we can get through the last 2 minutes and 13 seconds of this without me having to fact check something else.
So you went from 340 million people, that's today's population of the United States, to 7 billion consumers and customers. And that enriched people along the Blue Coast that had those skills. And they made an amount of money that was staggering. And that gave the Democratic Party the billionaire class.
Okay, so you're telling me that corporate CEOs that really like the Republican Party because they're friendly to corporations, um, haven't become billionaires because they shipped American industry to other countries to get cheaper labor to increase their profit margins? You're telling me that Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, um, all those other cats, that whole Epstein class, aren't involved with the Republican Party? I mean, yeah, there's sure there's members of the Epstein class in the Democrat Party too. Hold them all accountable.
Go into the Fortune 400, look at the two things, the size of the fortune and the political leanings of the billionaires. They were mostly left wing, and that enriched the coffers of the Democratic Party through foundations and PACs and gave them
Heritage Foundation, CPAC, Vote Red. You guys don't have massive consolidation of money. How about all the money that's thrown in by the Church of Scientology, which is not a church, or the Latter Day Saints, or um, yeah, any one of the evangelical megachurches.
these boutique issues from green energy to transsexuality that they push down our throats, all
Like you're not trying to shove the Bible down ours.
fueled by money, all without popular support. And finally,
Not to mention boots and zip tie handcuffs. I, I saw a photograph of a protester in cosplay as Lady Liberty in zip tie cuffs because she was protesting a detention center. Uh, this is protesting against the unlawful incarceration of individuals who didn't even have a bench warrant signed out on
our throats, all fueled by money, all without popular support. And finally,
them. 8+ million people protested at No Kings 3. I'm guessing you guys are pretty unpopular. You couldn't even fill up CPAC. Trump didn't even go to CPAC. He did not go to his own worship service.
there's a blue state flight. Their paradigm of high taxes, fraudulent entitlements, lax on crime.
Okay, I knew I wasn't going to get very far with this. So, on that note, let's take a quick thought about Blair White, MAGA transgender girl, um, fled California to go to Texas, and then once the anti-trans stuff became so heated, she packed up and went back to California. She ditched Alex Jones to go back to California because the anti-trans stuff in Texas was so heinous, or is so heinous.
Overregulation leads to poor, unsafe streets, poor schools.
And so that's why the deregulation of glyphosate and permission to jack up production in the name of national security is a good idea. Deregulating the railroads during Trump's first term is how we ended up with the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
People who feel they can't stay in the middle class, they're taxed too high, they can't afford a home. I'm talking about places particularly like Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, and California. And people are
Okay, okay, so they have higher property taxes, but they also typically, in those states, have better social services.
leaving, and the Democrats are doing what? They're appealing to a shrinking constituency in local and state politics that has no national residency. It doesn't.
Excuse me? No Kings 1, 5 million people. No Kings 2, 7 million people. No Kings 3, 8 plus. Somewhere between 8 and 9 million. I would say that there is a growing resistance at the grassroots level. Mike Flynn did get something right. Local activism leads to national change.
resonate with the national population. So if you can't win an election because your agenda either doesn't exist, but more likely if it did exist would offend people as a 70-30 issue, they being on the 30%, you go hysterical, you go nihilistic, you do what the Democrats are doing today.
Hmm. Okay, so
Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.
Oh, good grief. So that was a 12-minute video, and it took me, what, 40 minutes to get through it? Oh my goodness. This is the, oh, good grief. All right, so it's going to take me forever and ever and ever to get through all of this stuff because it's that complicated. People don't understand how complicated how did we get here is. All right, I got more work to do, folks. I hope you can keep up. I really do. I'm going to recommend again investing in some index cards, a really big box of thumbtacks, and like 5 different colors of yarn. It's likely you're going to need them, or maybe just a notebook or a good memory. I don't know. Whatever works for you. All right. So if you've hung out to the end, you're hungry for the knowledge. You're wanting to see the facts. You're wanting to hear what's going on. You want to know how we got here. So stick around. Until the next video, please take care of yourself so you can help take care of each other. Get the rest you need. Keep track of those fluids, and remember, mental health matters.
Everybody wants to